Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be solving this problem that appeared in the forums: 100% stacked bar chart problem. And no, yeah, no, so no, this is not practical charts and more practical charts with Nick, Deborah, but I think having read his books and now having made a number of videos now in terms of trying to implement some of the concepts in his book have given me a lot more confidence in answering these types of questions. Usually I would avoid most of these kind of things. It's not DAX related or Power Query related or some simple problem that needs to be solved, right? It's tweaking visualizations and things like that, which I have tended to avoid in the past, just because it's not really my area that I specialize in. But I took an interest in it because the first, I just made a video where I'd use small multiples, and that was my last video on more practical charts when I was dealing with cycle plots. And so this seemed like, oh, this should be an application of small multiples. And it is, and it isn't, as we'll see. So my first thing is, yeah, just use a clustered bar chart and small multiples. And so then they ended up with this. And I'm like, well, that doesn't look right. So I actually ended up creating 3 different solutions for this. And I've actually then now even improved upon those solutions to make it look even more like the original concept art, if you will. So that's what we're going to be covering today. And yes, I have, based on comments in my videos, I have made a conscious effort to reduce the number of tabs that I have in my browser window. But what you guys don't know is that I actually have 3 or 4 other browser windows open with just as many, if not more, tabs. So that is my disease right there. All right, so let's get into this with the Power BI desktop and showing off these solutions. Okay, so this is a clustered bar chart with that I'm using small multiples in. And as we go through this, I'm going to show like some of the severe frustrations with this stuff, as well as I think a few bugs along the way. So we're going to actually build each of these based upon what we have here. And actually to make this more along the lines of what what the original concept art showed, is we would not have the axis down here. Okay, so here is one, and this is a stacked bar chart using a small multiple feature. And then finally, this one actually, and this is the one that's the closest and the best, I would say. Actually, we ended up having to resort to 3 different visuals. And I'll show some of the, how to build this and why we couldn't get there with just one visual. Okay, so the first step in all of this, right, is the easy method is we're going to go ahead and select a clustered bar chart. And then we're going to take our category field, essentially. I called it bank. I don't know what banca actually means. It's another language. It was close enough to bank. It probably means something completely different. In our example, it's bank. Right? X-axis, and then we have our category as our small multiples, right? And of course, it looks like this, right? But we can fix that by going into and formatting the visual, going to our small multiples, saying 1 row, 3 columns. And now we've got this, as far as this is kind of the default of what it looks like when you set it up initially, but we want it to look like this, right? So we have to go and start doing some stuff. First things that we want to do is we're going to go into here. We're going to go and turn off things like the title, and then we'll go into the visual and go to small multiples, and we don't want the borders on our small multiples, right? Now here's something that I find interesting. So we have grid lines, and our grid lines are on, right? We don't want the grid lines, and we also don't want these values, and we don't want the title. So let's turn title off, gets rid of our title. Now we don't want the values. Actually, I think it's not supposed to be values, it's supposed to be percent. That's okay. There we go. Now it's percent, but regardless, So back to here, to our where we were. Grid lines are vertical and our x-axis. Now here's what is interesting to me. I turn off my values. My verticals also turns off, but they're still there. Now that is clearly a bug. I'm sure Microsoft would be like, no. That's by design, Greg. That's by design. It's not by design. That's a bug. Okay. I don't care what you say, Microsoft. Right. Right. So because if you turn values, what you have to do is you have to turn your vertical grid lines off and then turn your values off. And that gets rid of your grid lines. So just I don't care what Microsoft says. That is a bug. Okay. All right. So let's see here. What's next? Oh, we also want to get our data labels on here, right? So let's say our data labels are going to be here, and we turn our data labels on, and you can see where they are, and let's see where they're located. And right now, the position is auto, but we always want them to be on the outside end. And here we have another problem, right? No matter how big I make this, right, the largest bar for each one of them, it's not on the outside end. It's sort of inside a little bit, right? This one, for some reason, 56, right, was able to successfully get, out on the outside end. But this one, it didn't, and this one didn't. I would call this a bug, right? This is a bug, in my opinion. It should all be on the, if you're going to say outside end, it should be on the outside end, right? It shouldn't be in here. And here's why. Because in their picture, right, they wanted this to be the same color as their bars and always on the outside. But like, for example, when you do that, it gets really hard to see what that is, right? So let's go ahead and configure it though, the way that it should be. I've got this, again, I've expanded this all the way out and I still can't get that thing to be on the outside end. So buggy. All right, so how do we get the bars and all of that to be the way we want them to be? Well, let's go ahead and let's also get rid of the title on the y-axis, but we want the values, right? Okay, so we need to go and we need to get the color of our bars. And we have to say first category 1. Let's go ahead and copy that. And we want that to be some dark color. New rule. Category 2. We want that to be this color, let's say. And category 3. We want it to be this gray color here. Okay. All right, so there we go. Now our bars are that color. Now it would be nice if we had an option to be able to copy conditional formatting rules, and I could have created a measure, I suppose, but I did not. So let's go down here to values, sum of percent, and we want our color to be also conditionally formatted. So yes, it'd be easier if I actually would have created a measure to do this, I suppose, but I didn't. Category 1 is, we want it to be that color. Category 2 is this color right here. Category 3 is this color right here. All right, and let's make sure that they are bolded. All right, so as you can see, when I make it the same color, right, it disappears, right? And this is, you can't read it. So you'd have to make those slightly different colors, but it's annoying that, you've gone through everything you possibly can do, told it to be on the outside edge, and all of that other stuff, and it still plops it right there in the middle. So annoying. So anyway, what we'd have to do to fix that is, let's go and edit this. Let's give this a slightly lighter color and this a slightly lighter color, for example. We'll see how that goes. So that at least makes it readable. I mean, you could play around with that. In this case, I actually made this a really light color and made this a lot darker. But anyway, you'd have to play around with it. But that basically solves that. That's as close as you're going to get with a clustered bar chart. Okay, but again, what's missing in this is that we don't have the stacked nature of the bar charts, right? Where basically we have this bar all the way to the end, like in this one, So let's give this a shot and see where we can get. So in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to start with a stacked bar chart. We're going to set it up very similarly. We're going to put our bank in our x-axis, our y-axis, our category is going to go into small multiples. Our y-axis is going to be percent. And then our category is going to be here in small multiples. We're then going to set it up so that we have small multiples. Now 1 and 3, and get rid of our border. And again, well, we'll get to it in a minute. Because I'm going to show you just how annoying it gets. Now we want to have this extra space here, right? We want to have these bars filled out so they're all equal length, right? So we can do that. We can create a measure, which is just basically 1 minus our max percent. Okay, so if we add that then into our x, right now our measure takes up all the rest of that space, and we have, our actual values are going to be here. So with a little color formatting, right, we can solve that problem. Okay, so let's get a few things turned off here. We don't want a title. We don't want a legend. Turn that off. We're going to turn off our y-axis, turn off our title. We still want the values. On our x-axis, right? And this is where, again, it gets really annoying. So verticals are on. We turn off our title. We turn off our values, right? Turn back on our values, right? So we have to actually turn off, again, the verticals, and then turn off the values in order to get it the way that we want it to look. All right, so anyway, otherwise we're kind of stuck with it. All right, so now what we need to do is we need to get some of this formatting on our data labels and that sort of thing. So what we're going to do, and this starts to get a little tricky, but what we're going to do is the first thing we want to do is sum of percent, this color. And if you notice, there is no conditional formatting. Wah, wah, wah. Why is there no conditional formatting? God only knows, right? It shows up everywhere else, like in our data labels. Like if we turn our data labels on, right, and we go down to values, we have the ability to conditional format. But for whatever reason, Microsoft's just like, oh no, nobody needs to conditionally format, the color of their bars in a stacked visual, like we can, like literally we can right here. Like it's the same dialog, right? The same dialog. I have the ability to color it. We have the ability to color these. No. Microsoft says no. Nobody that's so silly. Nobody would ever want to do that. Stupid. All right. So anyway, so we can get this far, right? So now it's getting pretty close to what we had here. Maybe I had a little bit darker gray, but that doesn't really matter, right? But we now have this issue of, well, we want these to be outside on the outside edge, and we don't want these at all. Okay, so how do we get there? Go ahead and select this. The first thing on data labels, we want to measure. We didn't want to show for the series. We turn that to off, right? So now those are gone. But now we need to move these to the outside edge. So of course, right, we can do that easily, right? By going to here, going to our position, and wah, wah, wah. Inside end, inside base, inside center, inside base. Can't do it. Can't do it. So how do we actually solve it? Well, we actually solve it by thinking about it in the reverse, right? And this is bizarre, but this is how you have to do it. So we're going to turn off the data labels for sum of percent. We're going to turn the data labels on for measures. But we don't want the actual measure value. We don't want this. So instead, we're going to replace it with sum of percent. Right now we have these sitting here. And what we want to do then is take the position and say inside base. So now they're on the outside edge of where we want them to be. And there we go. Now, of course, we can, of course, additionally, here's something else that's crazy, right? This color is not that color, right? That's another bug, right? This color is white, okay? This color is not gray. If I go here and I select a color, it changes, right? If I change it back to white, then it's white, and it shows white. But for whatever reason, when you actually first set it up, it has some color. I don't know what color it is. It's like this color or that color, but that's not the color that it actually is in the visual, which is stupid and bizarre and a bug. And Microsoft's gonna say, "Oh, that's by design, Greg." No, it's not. Microsoft, we all know it's a bug. Stop lying. All right, so we can. I mean, it doesn't really do us much good to do this, but we can go and say, I don't want a gradient. I want rules. First category. And again, it doesn't do us much good to do this, but because we can't change the bar colors, which is so annoying. But the way that's the by design feature from Microsoft, that you can't change that color in a stacked visual, a stacked bar chart, because it's by design, Greg. I'm sure, yeah, sure it is, man. All right, so let's go and bold that. So we've gotten to the point where now this is now, I would say, pretty close to that, right? Basically, we've gotten there. And then again, I think it's pretty close to the original intent. I mean, we do have category 1, category 2, category 3, but big deal because that is easy to turn off if we wanted to, right? And I don't think we'd really want to turn that off. Maybe there's some reason for why you would want to. I do have it turned off in that one. Maybe there's a legend or some other visual that tells you what these colors mean or something like that. And it's easy to turn off. We're going to leave it on, but we could turn it off pretty easily by going to our small multiples and just clicking off our title, right? So there you go. Okay, but still, this is not what we want, right? Because we're still now, we've gotten, so we solved the problem where we don't have the extra added spacing, right? We've solved that here, but now we've lost the ability to have our columns be actually color-coded, right? So how then do we get to Nirvana where we have the actual stacking as well as the color coding? Well, unfortunately, we have reached the limit of what we can do with small multiples and stacked visuals because of this inability to format the bars. That function, that fx right there, is missing. If it wasn't missing, then we would be able to just do it all in one fell swoop. We could say additional format the bars, and we would literally be done. But no, Microsoft would not have anything be that easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this visual because it's all set up kind of the way we want it. And then we have this. And what we're going to do then is we're going to switch this out of small multiples. Well, is that what I did on this one? Yeah, that's basically what I did. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to take this out of small multiple. And then what we're going to do is we're going to filter it to category 1. So there we go. We need this to be sorted by bank. And we need it to be sorted descending. So again, they probably want bank 10 at the bottom, but that's a sort order problem that could be solved quite easily, so we're not worrying about it. All right, so there is our first visual, right? And so we can shrink that up and make it a certain size. And then, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to copy this visual, we're going to paste it. Now, this visual, we don't want this. And we could kind of mess around with layers or things like that. We could, actually hide this underneath this and then bring this to the front, et cetera, right? We could do stuff like that, but I never like to layer visuals and rely on that too much. So my version of this is that I actually go in here, go into the y-axis, and turn the values off, right? Which then, of course, makes it bigger than what it needs to be. How did I, is that what I did here? X-axis, Y-axis. Yeah, I turned it off and it didn't do that last time. That is interesting. Because now I'm basically, if I do that, I guess I have to mess around with this, which I don't want to do at all. So that's annoying. Oh yeah, I remember now. So yes, so basically this, yeah, if you have this turned on, you'd have to basically kind of shrink this up, and then you're never going to get it pixel perfect, right? Which will drive some people bananas and crazy, right? There's always going to be a little bit like 1 pixel off somewhere. Like that's pretty evident right there. That's very evident. Maybe if we shift this down like that, but then we've got that problem up there. So you're never going to get it exact by doing it this way, which makes it super annoying. So what you have to actually do is you actually have to turn your x-axis on and turn your x-axis on, and magically, right, it shrinks up. Just because I have my x-axis on, my y-axis off, my y-axis on, everything lines up. But now we have this stupidness down here, right, which we don't want. We don't want these things. So to get around that, we actually have to go into our x-axis and put our values, and we put our display color to white, and it gets rid of them. And then because it's going to be 3 different visuals, we have to do it 3 different times, right? And again, the bugness, I don't know what that is, but anyway, turn that to white. It's gone. It's gone. But we have to change this filter to be filter 2, right? And then we need this to be filter 3 or category 3, filter it to there. And then, of course, now this is nice because it kind of kept we did our conditional formatting, so we don't have to redo that for this one. All we have to do is do our formatting for our bars. And there is no conditional formatting in this case because, of course, they are, which I don't know why, again, that doesn't exist, but it doesn't. So we just can select it. It's not a problem in our case. That is wrong. Greg, you did that completely horribly. You need to make sure that you you know that you have what you're doing and selected as far as the series. So there we have that. We have our series here can be this color, and our series here can be this color right there. All right. And we have our completed visual, but it took us 3 visuals to get there. And we skipped a lot of the formatting for doing this because we copied from our last failed attempt here, just to make this video go a little bit easier versus building this entirely 100% from scratch. So, but there you have it. 3 different methods of achieving what they were trying to do with the 100% stacked visual, and all the bugs and craziness and all the little things that you have to deal with along the way. There you have it. So that is all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.